Welcome to episode 2 of the More Than Just a Score podcast. I'm Mike Leach, and I'm happy to have you join me for this episode. Again, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and join us on a journey that digs a little bit deeper into the world of sports that goes beyond just the score. In this episode, we take a look at a league and the annual event that has helped propel that league from modest beginnings just over 100 years ago into the global sporting juggernaut that it's become. We're looking at the National Football League and its signature stage, the Super Bowl. In 1920, a group of team owners gathered in a car showroom in the northeast Ohio town of Canton. After hours of deliberation and discussion, they shook hands and the American Professional Football Association was born. The APFA would later become known as the National Football League. Now, the growing pains were numerous with inconsistent rules, teams folding, and crowds so sparse that some games barely covered travel costs. Still, the league pushed forward yard by painstaking yard, each season a test of survival. The Roaring Twenties brought stars who provided a glimpse into what pro football could become. The most famous was Red Grange, the galloping ghost. He joined the Chicago Bears in 1925, and suddenly crowds surged, newspapers buzzed, and the NFL had a face that the public recognized. His barnstorming tour pulled in large crowds and proved that professional football could be more than just a sideshow. It could become a major attraction. As the 20s faded into the 1930s, the Great Depression hammered small market teams, forcing the league to shrink dramatically. Still, adversity pushed innovation forward. In 1933, the NFL held its first official championship game. The league also introduced rule changes that greatly shaped the game we know today, like legalizing the forward pass from anywhere behind the line of scrimmage. These innovations helped open up the sport. While the college game remained king, the NFL was finally forging an identity of its own. The growth of the league would be tested again, though, by forces beyond its control in the 1940s. America's entry into World War II meant that rosters were depleted, which forced teams to merge in order to survive. Most famously, the temporary creation of the Steagles, which you can probably guess was a combination of the Steelers and Eagles. While the world grappled with the horrors of war, football was able to offer Americans a few hours of escape during uncertain times. When the war ended, the sport was faced with a new problem. Returning soldiers were eager for entertainment, which was a good thing, except for the fact that the tiny stadiums were now far too small to meet the demand for tickets. Pro football transformed from a regional curiosity into a national obsession in the 1950s. Television helped fuel the league's growth. In 1958, the NFL championship game between the Baltimore Colts and the New York Giants went to sudden death overtime. Millions tuned in at home as Johnny Unitas led the Colts on a scoring drive that felt like it had been written for a Hollywood film. That game would go on to be called the greatest game ever played. But success brought competition. In 1960, the upstart American Football League launched with flashy offenses, bold personalities, and a willingness to challenge the NFL head-on. Suddenly, the leagues were battling for players, fans, and national attention. Salaries soared, rivalries heated. Football was evolving faster than ever. By the 60s, a rival to the NFL emerged on the pro football landscape. The American Football League was born in 1960 out of equal parts frustration, ambition, and rebellion against the established National Football League, which strictly dictated who could own teams and where franchises could reside. Having failed to secure an expansion franchise, oil magnate Lamar Hunt decided to create his own league instead. That decision would change the game forever. Hunt gathered together a band of like-minded, equally determined would-be owners like Bud Adams, Barron Hilton, and Ralph Wilson, who believed America had an appetite for more football and more innovation. From its creation, the AFL was bold. It placed teams in cities the NFL had ignored, like Houston, Dallas, Denver, and Oakland. It emphasized passing attacks and high-scoring excitement. AFL broadcasts, especially on ABC, gave the league a splash of youthful energy that made the NFL feel a bit stale. The AFL was vibrant, modern, and risk-taking. Its games featured colorful uniforms, fierce rivalries, and carried a hint of attitude. The league's competitive instincts extended into player recruitment. The AFL aggressively pursued top college stars, offering contracts the NFL couldn't always match. In 1960, the fledgling league made a splash by signing Heisman Trophy winner Billy Cannon out of LSU. That signing battle became front-page news and signaled that the upstart league was ready to make big plays to acquire big-time players. Through the early 60s, bidding wars erupted over top prospects. The two leagues spent millions battling it out for the rights to top talent, driving salaries up and giving players leverage they never had before. Suddenly, rookies who once had little negotiating power were signing big-money contracts. The AFL established respect on the field, too. The San Diego Chargers became innovators under coach Sid Gilman, whose offensive schemes influenced the future of the game. The Kansas City Chiefs, Boston Patriots, Buffalo Bills, and others established identities that ignited passionate fan bases. The Bills won back-to-back AFL titles in 1964 and 1965, while the Chiefs and Raiders emerged as consistent contenders. Slowly, the AFL dissolved any notion that it was just a small-time minor league. But in order to pick up a first down with football traditionalists with regards to legitimacy, the AFL needed to find a way to get into direct competition with the NFL. That breakthrough would come in 1966. After years of financial battles and escalating player salaries, the NFL and AFL both recognized that continued war would be unsustainable. Lamar Hunt and NFL exec Tex Schramm began a quiet dialogue. Over a series of discreet meetings, the two hammered out a framework that would bring peace and ultimately a lot of prosperity to professional football. On June 8, 1966, the NFL and AFL stunned the sports world by announcing that the two leagues would become one. They would operate separately for 4 more seasons before fully coming together as one league under the National Football League banner. Each league would maintain its own teams, front offices, and schedules until the merger was complete, but they would begin cooperating on player drafts immediately. By the time the official merger took effect in 1970, the newly expanded NFL reorganized into 2 conferences. The American Football Conference, or the AFC, it was composed largely of the original AFL teams plus the NFL's Browns, Colts, and Steelers. The National Football Conference, or the NFC, was made up mostly of longtime established NFL franchises. The combined league now featured 26 teams with a fully unified draft, schedule, and championship structure. The AFL's rise from renegade challenger to equal partner reshaped professional football forever. It forced the NFL to innovate, broaden its reach, and embrace a more modern, entertaining style of play. The merger not only ended a costly rivalry, but unleashed the sport's full commercial and cultural potential. And at the center of that transformation was the creation of a new championship game to pit each league's winner against the other. That game initially called the AFL-NFL World Championship, but quickly became known as the Super Bowl. The first big game came before the full merger at the end of the 1966 season, when the NFL's Green Bay Packers dominated the AFL's Kansas City Chiefs at the LA Coliseum in front of nearly 62,000 fans and over 50 million tuning in on television. A ticket to get into the Coliseum that day was just $12 and was deemed by many at that time to be an exorbitant price to pay even for a championship game. Now, by comparison, a ticket to Super Bowl 50 in San Francisco could have been had for a cool $2,500. The Pack, under the tutelage of head coach Vince Lombardi, also took Super Bowl II back to Titletown with a decisive win over the Raiders. Critics claim that the back-to-back wins for Green Bay proved that the AFL was still inferior, but it wouldn't be long before those critics would be put in their place. In 1968, the New York Jets, behind brash young quarterback Joe Namath, earned the AFL its defining moment. Before Super Bowl III, Namath famously guaranteed victory over the heavily favored Baltimore Colts, and true to his word, Namath and the Jets shocked the football world by soaring past the Colts 16-7. The following year, the Chiefs captured Super Bowl IV with a smothering defensive performance against the Minnesota Vikings. The AFL had claimed back-to-back titles, and with it, the respect that it had long sought. The Super Bowl didn't begin as the massive cultural megashow it would eventually become. In the early years, it was just a championship game, but by the 1970s and 80s, it was starting to explode into a distinctly American spectacle, almost like a winter holiday that fused football with the power of celebrity, money, and a shared national identity. As the 70s dawned, the league was still adjusting to the unified structure created by the merger. Fans were finding new rivalries, TV networks jostled for position, and teams were discovering what it meant to be a part of a truly national league. The early 1970s were defined by the rise of the Miami Dolphins. Under head coach Don Shula and his stern, precise leadership, the Fins reached 3 straight Super Bowls and delivered the league its first and only perfect season in 1972. Miami capped its undefeated run with a win over Washington in Super Bowl VII. It stamped the young event with a sense of historical significance. The game wasn't without drama, though. The Dolphins looking to extend their lead late in the game on a 42-yard field goal attempt from Garo Yepremian that didn't go quite according to plan. The kick was blocked, with the ball going back to Yepremian, who attempted to complete a pass. Oh, it was completed, but to Washington's Mike Bass. The kicker's calamity resulted in a Washington touchdown that made it a one-score game with just over 2 minutes to play. The Dolphins would overcome Garo's gaffe, though, to win 14-7. The dramatic finish and historical weight of the game meant that the Super Bowl was no longer just a championship game. It was becoming a stage for immortality. The NFL's television presence was also deepening. Broadcasters enhanced the entertainment and quality of the show with new camera angles, sideline reporting, and pregame shows. Each January, more and more eyes were tuning in. The country was starting to plan around the event with parties, gatherings, and a growing tradition of treating the day almost like an unofficial national festival. And then came Pittsburgh. While the Packers and Dolphins both achieved back-to-back championships, the Pittsburgh Steelers became a dynasty by going back-to-back twice in a 6-year period in the mid to late 1970s. Quarterback Terry Bradshaw's deep passes spiraling across America's TV screens, Franco Harris powering past defenders, and then there was the Steel Curtain defense that crushed opposing offenses with an intensity that would define the era. These games helped mold the Super Bowl into must-see television, blending toughness, personalities, and edge-of-your-seat drama. Each Pittsburgh victory felt like a piece of NFL folklore was being forged into the steel that made the city famous. By the end of the decade, the event was already swelling beyond football. Corporations recognized the power of the massive TV audience. Commercials became more creative, humorous, and more daring. A tradition was forming where the ads became almost as anticipated as the game itself. In living rooms across the country, people who barely understood the difference between a touchdown and a touchback were now invested in the spectacle. As the calendar flipped to the 1980s, the sport stepped fully into a new era, one marked by style, celebrity, and skyrocketing popularity. The decade opened with one of the biggest upsets in league history. The underdog Oakland Raiders, a wild card team with a spirit that was embodied by its renegade owner Al Davis, stunned the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 15. New stars were also beginning to emerge. Joe Montana, cool and unshakable under pressure, he led the San Francisco 49ers into a period of innovation under Bill Walsh and his West Coast offense. In Super Bowl 16, Montana put together a masterclass in a win over the Cincinnati Bengals. That game also brought a new star to the broadcast booth with the Super Bowl debut of former Raiders coach John Madden and his telestrator on color. Madden teaming up with Pat Summerall. Super Bowl 16 remains one of the highest rated broadcasts in history in the United States. In the mid-1980s, the Chicago Bears, with brash quarterback Jim McMahon, running back Walter Payton, and head coach Mike Ditka, led the Bears to victory in Super Bowl 20 over the New England Patriots. Not to be overshadowed, though, was the Bears' monsters of the Midway defense, engineered by colorful coordinator Buddy Ryan, that featured stars like Steve Mongo McMichael and Mike Singletary. The '85 Bears defense remains one of the most feared of all time. The team's off-field charisma matched its on-field dominance and demonstrated that performing on the Super Bowl stage could turn athletes into larger-than-life icons. Lawrence Taylor, quarterback Phil Simms, head coach Bill Parcells, and the New York Giants delivered another jolt of popularity. Taylor's ferocious style, along with the rest of the Big Blue wrecking crew defense under the guidance of a relatively unknown coordinator by the name of Bill Belichick, provided the backbone in a blowout win over Denver in Super Bowl 21. Fans also watched as Simms dissected the Broncos' defense by completing nearly every pass he threw, delivering a performance so precise that it still stands among the greatest by a quarterback on football's biggest stage. By the dawn of the 1990s, the Super Bowl was continuing its transformation. What had started as just a meeting between two leagues in the 1960s for a championship had become the biggest annual event in American sports and a true cultural powerhouse. Super Bowl 25 in Tampa played out with the first Iraq War very much on the minds of Americans. Amid heightened security and emotion, pop superstar Whitney Houston's performance of the Star-Spangled Banner will be remembered for generations for its power and goosebump-inducing quality prior to kickoff between the Giants and Buffalo Bills. That game would also provide one of the most breathtaking finishes in Super Bowl history. With the clock draining to 0 on the final play of the game, Buffalo kicker Scott Norwood's field goal attempt from 47 yards out appeared to be true and looked like it would split the uprights before drifting sharply outside of the right upright, the two sidelines becoming a contrast of emotions, with the Buffalo side sinking into dismay, deflation, and devastation, while on the New York side an explosion of relief and celebration of the Giants' 20-19 win. The defeat would be the first of 4 straight Super Bowl losses for the Bills, and for Bills Mafia members everywhere, the words "wide right" now carry with them a deep pain. America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, made the most of the Bills' misfortune early on in the decade, with the boys winning 2 of their 3 Super Bowls in the first half of the 90s against Buffalo. The Dallas dominance coming after years of rebuilding under new owner Jerry Jones. The Cowboys burst back onto the Super Bowl stage in the 1992 season with swagger and precision, powered by Troy Aikman's calm command at quarterback, Emmitt Smith's relentless running, and the emotional spark from wide receiver Michael Irvin and head coach Jimmy Johnson. By the mid-90s, the balance of power had shifted back to Titletown, USA and Lambeau Field. Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers returning to the pinnacle in Super Bowl 31. Favre's cannon arm paired with Reggie White's defensive mastery revitalized one of the league's founding franchises. Yet just as the Packers seemed poised to launch their own dynasty, John Elway was ready to write his storybook ending. After years of frustration, Elway finally captured not 1, but 2 Super Bowl victories with the Denver Broncos, cementing his legacy as he retired after the win over Atlanta in Super Bowl 33. The dawn of the new millennium would see one team go on an unprecedented run of dominance that spanned nearly 2 decades, and in that time, Tom Brady would go from being a 6th-round afterthought quarterback out of Michigan to being the greatest of all time. Brady, along with Coach Bill Belichick's quiet genius, guiding the Patriots to a stunning upset over the greatest show on turf, the St. Louis Rams, in Super Bowl 36, and with it ushering the NFL into the Patriots dynasty. Through clutch drives, icy composure, and an unmatched competitive fire, Brady led the Pats to 9 Super Bowl appearances and 6 titles. The world watched as the Super Bowl became synonymous with New England drama, last-minute comebacks, and overtime thrillers, including Super Bowl 51, which featured the largest comeback in Super Bowl history, with Brady and the Pats erasing the Falcons' 28-3 lead. That Super Bowl was also the first to require overtime. The Patriots took the ball after winning the coin toss and scored the game-winning touchdown on a 2-yard run from James White. But the Patriots' incredible success was also tinged with some painful losses as well, with the 2007 Pats chasing the same immortality achieved by the 72 Dolphins of going through an entire season without a loss. New England came up just short in Super Bowl 42 to the New York Giants. That game featuring some fourth-quarter heroics from New York wide receiver David Tyree as he snagged a pass by trapping it against his head. The iconic play would simply become known as the helmet catch. As the league moved into the 2010s, new generations of quarterbacks stepped onto the stage. Drew Brees delivering New Orleans an emotional championship as the city continued to rebuild following the destruction and devastation of Hurricane Katrina. Aaron Rodgers dazzled with precision and improvisation for the Packers. The Seahawks unleashed the Legion of Boom, smothering the Broncos in one of the most lopsided Super Bowls ever, before suffering a loss in one of the most debated endings in Super Bowl history to the Patriots the very next year. And Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning, in the twilight of his career, earned one final ring as a member of the Broncos' Super Bowl 50 winning team. Then came the age of Patrick Mahomes. With effortless arm talent and a flair for the spectacular, Mahomes led the Kansas City Chiefs to multiple Super Bowl appearances, sparking comparisons to Brady and igniting discussions about the league's next dynastic power. His comeback win against San Francisco in Super Bowl 55 followed by future appearances and victories, signaling the beginning of a new chapter in the Super Bowl's evolving story. Even as the on-field game reached new heights, the Super Bowl's cultural reach expanded beyond imagination as well. A large part of the spectacle beyond the spectacle is the halftime show. When the first Super Bowl arrived in January of 1967, the game itself was just a means of determining a champion between two leagues that were trying to figure out a way forward toward a merger. It was played in a half-empty stadium, and at halftime, there were no pop stars, no fireworks, and certainly no global audience eagerly awaiting an eye-popping performance. Instead, the entertainment was simple: marching bands, drill teams, and a few patriotic flourishes. Yet even in that simplicity, the seeds of a future phenomenon were planted. In those early years, halftime reflected the traditions that were born out of college football. The University of Arizona and Grambling State Marching Band shared the field at the first Super Bowl, showcasing precision and musicality. Through the late 60s and early 70s, shows leaned heavily into themes of Americana. Military bands performed with flag formations and musical tributes to historical moments. Themes ranged from space exploration to Mardi Gras celebrations. The productions were both colorful and energetic, but were a long way from the cutting-edge cultural drivers that would come to be a hallmark of Super Bowl halftime festivities in the future. The 1980s marked the first signs of real transformation. The television audience for the game was ballooning, and the NFL recognized that halftime could become more than just a placeholder. The league began experimenting with bigger, more theatrical performances. The group Up With People would become the unofficial house band of the era, delivering large, upbeat productions that blended music, choreography, and cheerful messaging. Their shows were earnest and ambitious, but they didn't quite yet harness the full potential of the platform. The halftime show was evolving, but still searching for a purpose. Everything changed, though, in 1993. The Super Bowl 27 halftime show faced strong competition from a rival network, airing live counter-programming during halftime. Desperate to keep viewers from flipping the channel, the NFL turned to the biggest entertainer in the world, the king of pop, Michael Jackson. With a single iconic stare from the Rose Bowl stage, Jackson transformed the halftime show forever. His entrance, standing motionless for nearly 2 minutes as the crowd roared, became a moment etched in television history. When he launched into Jam, Billie Jean, and Black or White, it became clear that the halftime show was now a big part of the show. From that moment on, the NFL embraced superstardom. Throughout the 1990s, the halftime show became a showcase of musical royalty. Diana Ross soaring away in a helicopter at the end of her performance. Gloria Estefan blended Miami flair with elaborate staging. Stevie Wonder injected soul and spectacle in equal measure. Even more memorable was the Super Bowl 35 mashup featuring Aerosmith, NSYNC, Britney Spears, Mary J. Blige, and Nelly, an explosion of pop, rock, and hip-hop that previewed the chaotic energy the 2000s would bring. In 2002 in New Orleans, the halftime show took on a different vibe as Irish rockers U2 put on a show that carried a more reverent and unifying tone in the wake of the 9/11 terrorist attacks the previous September. The evolution of the halftime show didn't come without controversy, though. In 2004, during Super Bowl 38, the now infamous wardrobe malfunction between Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake sparked a national firestorm. The fallout was widespread, with massive fines, government hearings, tightened broadcast standards, and a shift in the NFL's booking strategy. In the coming years, the league turned to classic rock icons who evoked less risk. Paul McCartney, the Rolling Stones, The Who, Bruce Springsteen, and Tom Petty all performed. Their shows were musically rich, often simpler, and carried a reassuring presence. Yet even in its caution, the halftime show continued to cement itself as a cultural touchstone. One performance during this era stands out as one of the greatest in history: Prince's 2007 masterpiece. In a Miami rainstorm that seemed almost choreographed, Prince brought down the house with Purple Rain, his silhouette cast against a massive sheet in a stormy haze. The moment proved to be transcendent, proof that the halftime show could create emotional theater without a single gimmick. By the early 2010s, the NFL was ready again for the spectacle of modern pop. The Black Eyed Peas introduced a new LED-driven flash. Beyoncé electrified the Superdome, delivering a reunion with Destiny's Child. Bruno Mars brought soul, energy, and showmanship to a younger generation of viewers, while Katy Perry rode a giant mechanical lion. Elements of her colorful performance overshadowed parts of the game itself. The halftime show has become a cultural conversation, live, global, and instantly viral. With the rise of social media, every second of the show has become a potential flashpoint, a choreographed surprise, a fashion statement, or even a political message. Lady Gaga's 2017 performance, beginning with a leap from the rooftop of Houston's NRG Stadium, was a perfect embodiment of the modern era. Bold, visually stunning, and immediately dissected online. In 2020, Jennifer Lopez and Shakira combined Latin music, dance, and cultural symbolism in a show that celebrated heritage and female empowerment. 2022 marked an artistic turning point for the NFL. For the first time, the league dedicated the halftime stage primarily to hip-hop, a genre that has shaped American culture for decades, yet has rarely been in the spotlight on its biggest platform. Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, and surprise guest 50 Cent delivered a nostalgic yet groundbreaking show that felt long overdue and deeply significant. By 2023, the halftime show's ability to generate global fascination reached new heights. Rihanna's performance was minimalist, confident, visually striking, and introduced a new artistic philosophy. Suspended on floating platforms wearing bold red styling, she delivered a masterclass in presence while announcing her pregnancy without a single word. It was modern, viral, and unforgettable. Across its nearly 6 decades, the Super Bowl halftime show has grown into something far more than just entertainment. It's become a mirror of American culture, its trends, its tensions, and its triumphs. It reflects who the nation listens to, who it celebrates, and what it debates. The show has been a stage for spectacle and for statements, for nostalgia and innovation. What began as a marching band tradition has evolved into one of the most watched musical events on the planet. It brings together families and friends, music fans and football fans, dedicated viewers and casual participants. For many, it's become the centerpiece of the event, the moment they look forward to the most. The Super Bowl has long been a spectacle that is part sport, part celebration, and part cultural moment. But as the decades ahead unfold, it's destined to become something even larger. A global festival of technology, entertainment, and human connection. One day, historians might look back at the 2020s as the moment the Super Bowl began to transform from America's championship game into the world's most immersive live event, as the prospect of the Super Bowl moving beyond America's shores looms as a possibility. Imagine the big game in the 2030s being set beneath the shimmering roof of a next-generation stadium. The field below glows with augmented overlays that only fans wearing AR glasses can see. Real-time route maps, player speeds, and shifting win probabilities. In the stands, fans connect to the game in entirely new ways, customizing their experience like a video game interface layered over reality. Outside the stadium, the Super Bowl becomes a global carnival. Cities compete fiercely for hosting rights by showcasing futuristic fan zones, each more ambitious than the last. Imagine the Las Vegas Strip transforming into a football-themed digital art district, Miami lining its beachfront with floating LED stages, international cities such as London or Tokyo preparing pitches to become the first overseas host, aiming to turn the big game into a worldwide pilgrimage. Broadcasts evolve as well into something more personal and more expansive. Fans can choose from dozens of different live feeds, including quarterback cam, coach cam, or even the drone cam. Viewers can watch from any perspective. How about hovering above a lineman's block, standing behind a defensive back during a critical third down play, or even seeing the stadium through a reconstructed 3D environment that feels almost tactile? The halftime show will continue to undergo its own evolution as well. While superstar performers remain at the centerpiece, holographic technology can allow artists long gone to return to the stage in respectful, breathtaking tributes. Stadiums deploy drones that light up the sky, painting animations synchronized with musical crescendos. Millions of fans participate through interactive apps, influencing set designs, lighting effects, and collective crowd moments that ripple across like waves that turn the entire stadium into an artist's canvas. But amid all of this futuristic glimmer, the heart of the Super Bowl will continue to be what it's always been about: creating a championship memory that endures for generations. It's still about a team facing a moment that defines careers. It's still about the human essence of gathering together, whether it's in living rooms, restaurants, or backyards, to share food, laughter, nervous moments, and hope. It's still about one game, one night, one chance at glory that echoes throughout history. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to join us again for More Than Just a Score.